After being hit by hackers, a major credit union gets ready to relaunch its online services. Barbados taking steps to make it more competitive on the international stage. Stakeholders trying to ensure everyone is on board ahead of the new National Nutrition Policy for Schools rollout tomorrow. And in sports, Kai St. George gets out of round one at the Pan Am Surfing Games.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
Good evening, I'm Pearson Bowen. More than 2 months after it was hit by hackers, the City of Bridgetown Cooperative Credit Union Limited is in the final stages of its recovery. Chief Executive Officer Steve Bell says they'll be relaunching their digital services such as mobile and internet banking on their new and improved platform shortly. He says this is being done after their systems were hardened against cyber attack and thoroughly reviewed by the Central Bank of Barbados. The credit union suffered what it called a cyber incident on the 14th of February this year, and for several weeks afterwards, customers could only access their accounts by going into the union. Debit card functionality was subsequently restored, but online services remained unavailable. Now, during a telephone interview with CBC News, Mr. Bell says that is about to change.
If you think about these processes, that it takes a while because of the process you have to go through. Not only in terms of ensuring that when you bring back up the system, you bring back them in a safe and secure way, you bring that system out of them, but also in terms of getting the regulatory authorities to be sure that you've addressed all the concerns. So before we were allowed back on to any payment platforms, we had to prove to the Central Bank of Barbados that everything was indeed fine. And you know that the Central Bank of Barbados is not going to just allow you to get a government platform until they have taken you through a detailed process. They have analyzed all the reports, asked your consultants and yourself all the questions that need to have so that they will be confident that when you're let back on, there's not a problem.
Mr. Bell assures none of its members' money or data was lost during the incident.
No. There was no compromise of any of our members' data at all in the process. So our members can feel free, be confident and comfortable to know that nothing has been affected in terms of their data, whether it be their monies or their information.
Well, joining us now to provide more in context to the recovery process generally after a cyber attack is cybersecurity expert Edward Millington. Mr. Millington, good evening to you.
Good night, Pearson.
Thank you for joining us. Give us some sense of what's involved for any company once they have been attacked in the cyberspace.
Well, the main process is really involved in trying to determine that the adversary is still not in the environment. And in the COB particular case, or any company, they want to make sure that as they come back online, that they do not suffer an attack again. And in some cases, they can even be more detrimental, especially sometimes for third parties, in this case, any connecting parties, etc. So the main focus is to make sure that you are coming back up safe and all systems are now in a different posture to resist any form of cyber attack or the previous cyber attack from before.
In the comment made by Mr. Bell of COB, he talked about having to have approval by the Central Bank of Barbados. Is that unusual?
No, it's not. In any situation where there's some level of compliance within the environment or there is some level of connectivity issues, the third party, in this particular case, the central bank or any of your vendors, etc., wants to make sure that any connected system does not become a conduit to also infect or cause problems within their network. So there's a form of what you would either call an SLA or some level of agreement that any connection between businesses must be done in a safe and a controlled manner.
Given by the COB, this attack happened in February. This is now April, practically May. Why would it take so long for it to be at this stage of resolution?
Well, it all depends on how critical systems are in terms of what is being affected. And in a situation where there could be varying cybersecurity postures, and then also with compliance, there is a situation in this case with something we call the regulators, but I'm not quite sure how central bank plays in that term, but they also want to make sure that all due diligence and due care has been performed within identifying, documenting, and also all necessary processes are put in place to make sure that the connecting system, in this case the COB, any other business, is at a very high cybersecurity posture.
What do you see to be lessons for all of us to take away from this example of the COB?
It is something that can happen to all of us, and we must be vigilant. We must have those cyber resilient programs being developed. And when we say cyber resilient, it goes a little bit beyond cybersecurity, in the sense that in case something happens, the business can still operate. And I believe COB has done a very good job from that aspect, because it did not hit other parts of the network. So persons are still able to have access to the money and so forth. So it is going to be very important that businesses understand that we all are at risk, and we need to make sure the necessary programs are in place.
Mr. Millington, I want to thank you so much for joining us this evening and sharing from your insight indeed. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Edward Millington, cybersecurity expert. In other news tonight, Barbados is moving to boost its competitiveness on the international landscape. That's the word from Business Minister Senator Lisa Cummins, speaking at the opening ceremony of the annual General Assembly of the Pan American Standards Commission. She said officials will soon roll out the Barbados National Quality Policy.
We are connecting consumer satisfaction, the development of quality products, investments in the small, micro, and medium-sized enterprises with the launch of a national quality policy here in Barbados, led by the Barbados National Standards Institution. The Barbados National Quality Policy is expected to develop a range of standards all across the business sector, across the business community, and it is my expectation that with it, we will see stronger businesses, stronger products built on quality.
Acting Director of the Barbados National Standards Institution, Hayden Rind, spoke of the importance of the combat session and cooperation in boosting competitiveness.
The COPAN General Assembly provides a unique opportunity for standards bodies across the region to share experiences and to share your best practices and to identify areas where we can work together to promote the development of standards. And in working together, we will meet the needs and bring solutions to our various economies.
As the Ministry of Education gets ready to implement the new National Nutrition Policy for schools when the new school term starts tomorrow, one of the key stakeholders in the initiative says a number of school vendors have been seeking guidance on the best healthy foods to make available to the island's children. That's according to Dr. Kia Lewis, a general practitioner and chairperson of the Barbados Childhood Obesity Prevention Coalition, who made the comment on the morning report.
From the feedback we have gotten, many of them are absolutely willing. In fact, over the weekend, persons were sending products to us to assess to see if they would meet the criteria, and that was really, really encouraging for us. So the effort has been great. The conversation has been good as well. It was told at the vendors and canteen concessionaire workshops, they actually began discussing, how they can do things differently. There are vendors that were ahead of the curve, who were, and canteen concessionaires especially, who were offering healthier alternatives from before the launch. And so they were able to share, how they made the changes and how the children would have adapted. So I think that they have received it pretty well. Of course, there will be fears out there as it relates to the children will respond and whether they will buy. But I think by and large, they want to do the right thing and they're making the effort.
A national peace program has been rolled out in Barbados. Coordinator Akil Daly unveiled the program during a church service at the Hope Church, Neil's Plantation. It is an initiative conceptualized by the Minister of State for Crime Prevention in the Office of the Attorney General, Corey Lane. Mr. Daly gave details on the 12 pillars on which it is founded.
We are having a comprehensive approach to change in this country. For the first time, we are going into communities and we are having direct interventions where the Prime Minister would have provided $2.5 million for family-based interventions, whether it be parental programs or life coaching programs for our adolescents that may have gone astray. So a serious effort has been made to change Barbados, starting with the National Peace Program.
Prime Minister Mia Motley is set to meet with United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres and key stakeholders on the Bridgetown Initiative. Prime Minister Motley will be traveling to the United States and will be out of country from today until the 27th. During her trip, she will also meet with the Prime Minister of Canada and co-chair of the Sustainable Development Goals and advocates Justin Trudeau, as well as members of the United States Congress on Capitol Hill. Deputy Prime Minister Cynthia Bradshaw will act as Prime Minister while Ms. Motley is overseas. Coming up on the CBC NewsNight, efforts continue in the bid to establish a Barbados Mass Transit Authority. After this break. Consultations have started for the establishment of a Barbados Mass Transit Authority. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Transport, Works and Water Resources Cynthia Bradshaw said government would be working with all stakeholders during the transformation of the sector. She was at the time addressing the Alliance Owners of Public Transport's retirement party at the Infinity on the Beach Resort in St. Lawrence Gap in honor of Frederick Gibson and Paul Frank, who were retiring after 38 and 41 years respectively.
Having signed the Transport Compact, one element of that is that we will move towards a Barbados Mass Transit Authority. We've had those preliminary discussions and literally preliminary with the unions because, again, like most things, these things take a long time to flesh out for us to be able to kind of determine exactly the direction in which we want to go.
The Deputy Prime Minister said a transition committee is in place and she would be seeking input from the two retiring members of the alliance.
We are moving in the direction of having a transition committee that would help us to be able to work more closely with the association as well as the unions and all of the stakeholders, including the general public as well, as we make that transition. So you'll hear more of that within the coming weeks, but just to say that it is not lost on us in terms of the challenges that have been raised here. We recognize that, you know, there are some gaps that need to be filled, but it can only start to come about once we have those regulations and once we are able to meet in a room and be able to have a meeting of minds in terms of the direction in which we wish to go.
Experienced pediatrician Dr. Clyde Cave says Vaccination Week in the Americas presents a good opportunity to refocus on the important vaccines necessary for children especially. He says vaccinations represent one of the biggest medical interventions often taken for granted. Dr. Cave made the comment as a guest on the Morning Barbados program as he reflected on the significance of the week, which is being held under the theme Time to Get Up to Date.
It's a big deal and different from medicine in some ways in that it's preventative and it's had a major impact on our society. And like things that are so pervasive, sometimes we take them for granted. And there have been waxes and wanes in the enthusiasm, shall we say, for various vaccinations by parents and by patients over time. So Vaccination Week in the Americas is an idea to focus again, remind people of the value of what we have, maybe how to access, and offer a chance to catch up on immunizations that may have lapsed.
The Mother's Day show, Mums, This One's For You, is back. The event's founder and producer Desmond Weeks told a media conference at the Sky Mall the COVID-19 pandemic did provide challenges, but the show is back and with a difference.
The theme this year, ladies and gentlemen, is celebrating our mothers in culture. I will highlight 11 mothers in culture. Those mothers who have served in the cultural industry in various roles, and who also volunteered their time, love, and passion in our culture.
Sports Night, brought to you with the compliments of Great Health Works, agents for Omega XL.
All right, time for us to head over to the sports studio now for Anne-Marie Burke, who's wearing similar colors. Anne-Marie, good evening to you.
Good evening, Pearson. We're matching this
Yes.
evening. I start with surfing news. There were mixed fortunes for Team Barbados as they started their campaign today at the Pan American Surfing Games in Santa Catalina, Panama. Kai St. George advanced to round 2 of the boys' longboard competition when he finished second in Heat 10 with a heat total of 9 points. However, Jacob Burke did not advance out of the first round after he was third in Heat 3 with a score of 8.5. Kai will surf in round 2 on Thursday. Meanwhile, tomorrow Chelsea Roy and Chelsea Tuat will compete in the opening round of the women's shortboard competition. Roy goes in Heat 12 scheduled for 11:40 a.m. and Tuat at 5:20 p.m. in Heat 14. Well, boxing returned to the Wildy Gym over the weekend when the Barbados Boxing Association held a unity boxing card featuring 8 bouts. Here's a look at the action. This novice men's super heavyweight bout got the card started, as in the red corner was Emerson Hurley, in the blue Malik Springer. And from the bell, Hurley wasted no time in getting into attack mode, going straight for the jab to the head and followed up with a 1-2 combo. There was no doubt that he did not come out to play. And he was just throwing blows left, right and center. And with this one to Springer's chin, he got an early count, but he was okay. And while Springer tried to get back into it with some responses, Hurley just kept pushing hard. And we could see that he was a dominant one, and although Hurley survived this first round, it was 1 minute 4 seconds into the second that a decision would finally be had. As the referee stopped the contest, Springer already taking a beating from Hurley, and despite pleading with the ref to continue, it was all over. In the red corner, Hurley takes it. Bout 2 was a heavyweight encounter also in the men's novice with Tyrese Holder in the red and Daniel Williams in the blue corner. The early exchanges pretty much saw the boxers feeling each other out with no major points being attained. But then Holder started to turn on the pressure and landed some good punches to give himself the points edge at the end of the first and second rounds. And in the third is when Holder was then able to truly conquer Williams, waiting on the right time to apply a combo that finished with one final jab to the head. And this is where it would stamp his authority, and it was signed and sealed with this power shot, the referee giving Williams a count and then deciding it was all over. The red corner seems to be producing the winners. Tyrese Holder defeats Daniel Williams. In the other bouts, the light middleweight winner on points was Demeril Thorpe in the red, who had to fight really hard for the 2-1 win over Nathan Walcott after both boys took the bout all the way. The light welterweight bout between Abishai John Baptiste in the blue and Jaheim Eswick had the crowd going as both were throwing punch for punch, but it was Eswick in the red who will be awarded the win on points, 3-0. Just as keen a contest was that of the light middleweight featuring Kanai Mears in the red and Wayne Clark in the blue. This went the full 3 rounds before Mears held Clark on the ropes and the punishment was inflicted, and it was too much for Clark, who was brought to his knees. And that was all Mears needed for the win. The lightweight title would be claimed by Joe Williamson of Guyana in the blue as he got the better of Barbados' Jushawn Shepherd, and this will be another of those decided on points, with Williams winning 3-0. And in the lone women's bout on the night, it was Abejan versus the Guyanese in the heavyweight matchup that saw Abiola Jackman in the blue quite let her countrymate take the title back to Georgetown as she took it on points over Kamara Stewart. Boxing is back in full swing. As promised, I have news of draft. After the 7th and 8th rounds of the Henderson Lane Memorial Drafts Tournament, Jack Francis has taken over the lead from Trevor Howell. Playing at the Ruben Iyami Draft Center in Lodge Road, Christchurch, Francis now leads with 23 points. Former world champion Ronald Suki King is also on 23, but Francis is leading via honor points over King. Howell is now in third with 22 points. Ryan Eustace and Julian Burgess round up the top 5, both having 18 points. Round 9 will be contested on Thursday, with the 10th and final round set for Sunday.
In business tonight, the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association believes the planned opening of a multi-million-dollar resort in St. Peter by US-based Pendy Hotels and Resorts will help to further boost the island's tourism product and profile globally. That's according to newly appointed Chief Executive Officer of the BHTA, Ryan Ford, who made the comment during an interview with CBC News.
The marketing that comes with any international brand is quite massive. Every country will love it. The good thing that I saw in a little bit of news that I learned about Pendry is that it's a very small boutique brand, meaning the people that are chasing to go to Pendry, they are quote-unquote lifers, you know, because they don't have the amount of a Hilton or a Marriott in terms of thousands of people that are going to thousands of hotel options. These ones are very specific because they're so few, so they will always go to that property. So that is something very unique. There's not a lot of competition because they're mainly in the US.
The privatization of the Barbados sugar industry will not be an easy change. Government is to gradually begin the promised privatization of the industry at the end of the current sugar crop. Minister of Agriculture Indar Ware said government will stop injecting close to $60 million annually to the sector, which will give way to the transition process. But Chairman of the Barbados Sugar Industries Limited, Mark Seeley, told the Business Report all the stakeholders are working on a myriad of things, but it will take time.
It's complicated even more because we're looking at renewable energy, and we know the complications which are around solar at the moment, with the need for battery storage, the areas that you can and cannot put solar in at present. So, you know, it's not an easy thing.
The chairman said the process will take years, but it is the will of the stakeholders to see it come to fruition.
It's going to be a process. It's going to be over a number of years to try and move towards it. But we are, the good news is that we have a good team who is looking at it, and we have the will and the commitment to achieve it. And that will and commitment and stickability has not been there in the industry for 50 or 60 years. So I think that's a huge positive.
So Anne-Marie Burke is back. I'm not so sure if she's any good at road tennis at all. Anne-Marie, are you?
No, that's something I'm now learning, Pearson. I'm going to add it to the long list, though. The champions of the Sandy Lane Charitable Trust Easter Youth Road Tennis Tournament were crowned over the weekend. Competing at the Cricket Legends of Barbados on Fontebelle, 5 players won their respective matchups to take home the top prizes. CBC's Damien Best reports.
Finals time in the Sandy Lane Charitable Trust Easter Youth Tournament. This is Nolan Stewart Jr. closest to the screen up against Kenoja Belgrave. Belgrave looked sharp coming into the court on a few occasions. Stewart Jr. said 2 can play that game as well, this time using the angle. Crowd loving it. Belgrave would move from being up 9-5 to take the first game 21-13. A switch of ends didn't make much of a difference. The half volleys were met with the full face of the racket, a gem down the line. Nolan did try to match the flair of Belgrave, but his GPS was slightly off, and Kenoja would eventually run away with this 1 and 2 straight, 21-13, 21-8, to be the primary school boys champion. Let's move on to the secondary school under 16 girls final. Renisha Stewart closest to the screen playing Kezia Blunt. Close between these two at 5-4. Then some unforced errors from Blunt helped Stewart pull away to draw first blood, 21-12. Into the second we go. This was the shot of the match for me. The racket speed from Stewart left Blunt frozen in time. From there was smooth sailing for the most part, as Stewart would go on to take the contest 21-12, 21-15, and the title in the under-16 girls. In the under-16 boys now, Azari Clark in the far court playing Raheem Nurse. This one was locked at 1 game apiece, with Clark taking the first 21-19. Nurse responding in the second 21-16. You could tell it was a matchup with a roller coaster effect, superb potential at both ends of the court. In the third, Nurse outdueled his opponent, with Clark finding the net on a few occasions and not making some adjustments. Nurse eventually taking the boys' title in the third, 21-15. In the feature matchup, Shaquem Nurse in the far court versus Deontay Chapman. Chapman winning the battle of the back arm rally. Eye candy. However, Nurse up 5-2 would send down some gentle reminders. Chapman venturing into the court and caught napping on the baseline. Nurse pouncing. These two really whet the appetite of the crowd with some engrossing stroke play. But there could only be one winner, and Nurse would prevail to secure the senior boys crown. Congratulations to all the winners. Damien Best, CBC Sports.
Thanks, Damien. Now, Haley Matthews and Shakira Salmon will lead the Barbados Pride women's squads for the 2023 Cricket West Indies Regional Super 50 Cup and T20 Blaze tournaments in St. Kitts. The 50-member squad was announced today for the two tournaments that will run from May 4th to 28th. Matthews will skipper the defending Super 50 champions, while Salmon takes charge of the T20 Blaze segment. Matthews will be replaced by Najani Kamabach in the T20 Blaze squad. Barbados Pride women will oppose Trinidad and Tobago women in the opening series of the Super 50 on May 8th. The members of the two squads include Haley Matthews, Shakira Salmon, Aliyah Aline, Shanika Bruce, Asabi Calendar, Shamilia Connell, Keelia Elliott, Alison Gordon, Thiana Herbert Mears, Trishan Holder, Kaisia Knight, Kaishona Knight, Alyssa Scanterbury, Aliyah Williams, and Najani Cumberbatch. And Pearson, that's it for sports. Back over to you.
And that's our time tonight. Thank you for spending yours with us. I'm Pearson Bowen. For the crew, to all of you, good night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for visiting us. Now, if you want to see more stories like this one, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can always go to cbc.bb for the latest news and current affairs.